Hello and welcome to Business Today Television. I'm Siddharth Zarabi and we are here at Davos in a different setting with a very different and very powerful panel of guests that I have here with me. Romal Shetty, the CEO of Deloitte South Asia. Thank you very much and welcome. Chaudhry, someone who the audiences of India Today and Business Today Television know very well, the founder, chairman and CEO of Zscaler. One of the most well-known names of Indian origin in the technology space globally, and Sanjeev Joshipura, Executive Director of Indiaspora. Thank you very much for being here with us. We've been here in Davos, it's day 3 and on the promenade. Romal, and I'm coming to you first. One of the key things is AI is everywhere. For many years, India has always been everywhere on the promenade. But AI is everywhere, along with many Indian states and Indian lounges. We are sitting in one of them right here. It's an experience center for various Indian technologies. I want to ask you about your own sense about the kind of transformation and business impact that AI, generative AI, is being spoken about here.
Yeah. So Siddharth, in fact, we just released a Deloitte Global AI Survey just about a few days back, about 2,800 respondents, and clearly pretty much 79 to 80% of the organizations believe that AI will transform their businesses in 1 to 3 years. So it's fairly significant in where they've gone. But what we are seeing on the ground is AI is today being more used from a productivity, efficiency, those kind of things, not as much in terms of product innovation and things like that. So I think that's the journey that sort of needs to transition, but also probably one of the biggest opportunities for India. I mean, today our services export is about $350 billion. Estimated that it could, the services, which is not just software but other services as well, estimated to go around to a 1 trillion, and 40% could be fueled by AI. So a really massive opportunity.
Just a quick follow-up on that big survey. Specifically in terms of the India respondents, what was the top observation that you could glean from all the data that it generated?
I think the one of the biggest challenges, let me put the challenges, was on the skilling. Really, that do we have the right set of people from a skilling? And second was how much of bias and risk could creep into when we build AI models.
Did any of the respondents say that they'll reduce their workforce? Because that was one of the headlines on day 1 here.
Yeah, everybody does believe that the productivity will change, but I mean, you're the telco guy, and one of the things that you know is still less than 4 to 5% of the world is fully connected. So when you have that kind of connectivity left, 95%, AI actually, the jobs will change, but I don't really think that.
And you're one of the most well-known names in telecom in India. Does it surprise you, Romal, that at least my phone hasn't managed to catch a 5G signal here?
It just talks about how India is progressing. India has 5G in the best in villages as well. We don't have it in Davos.
Okay, that's a great point. Mr. Chaudhry, I'm going to take that forward in terms of the impact that you see. And in India, there is a business transformation impact. There is also the risk of a societal impact considering the number of jobs that we need to continue to create every year.
So AI ML will have probably bigger impact on society than internet did. Internet got us connected, and AI ML will help us do many things in many ways. It's not only going to help productivity, but better products and in every area. But at the same time, it's also actually going to create cyber risks as well. It's so easy to hack or really breach businesses with AI ML. And then companies like Zscaler have to work hard to stay ahead of the bad guys. In terms of the jobs you asked, every technology has been talked about kind of killing jobs, but we haven't really seen big impact of that. I think reskilling will be needed. It is true that the lower level skills are always getting automated first, but the new level of jobs will get created. So people should actually worry about getting the better skills for better opportunities.
That's a fantastic observation and goes back to the original time when railway tickets in India were supposed to be, I mean, the computerization started and the fares. Sanjeev, you're sitting right in midst of two people who have done very significant amounts of work, and I would say in some ways they represent the global Indian, the global technology Indian. You work in this space. Give us perspective on how the Indian talent is contributing to some of the latest technology breakthroughs and innovation across the globe.
Yeah, thanks, Siddharth. So just for context, just to start out, at Indiaspora, we are a non-profit organization, and our mission is to inspire and position the global Indian diaspora to be a force for good and to connect leaders in various professions in different countries with leaders resident in India. Our vision, it's opposite to where we are physically sitting at the moment, is to be the Davos of the global Indian. Yeah. Now, to specifically answer your question.
And if that were to be a physical event, where would it be? Jaisalmer?
Could well be. Could well be. That could be a nice city among many others. Could be around the world because there are 32 million Indians
Shorts
around the
and t-shirts, dress code.
Much better weather, that's for sure. There are 32 million of us around the world, so it could be in many countries, I guess. But to specifically answer your question, I think there are 4 areas that I would point to, Siddharth, in which the Indian diaspora is making significant contributions in the technology space. Let me just briefly talk about each of them. The first is in our network at Indiaspora, and this is very well known. Every third startup in Silicon Valley is founded by an Indian diaspora. The Indian diaspora is very advanced and at the helm of technological innovations in the United States, certainly, but in other countries around the world. And we have in our network tremendous examples of people who have achieved the highest scale of success in the entrepreneurial realm. One of them is sitting to my right. So the Indian diaspora around the world who are starting out on the entrepreneurial journey really want mentorship and advice and guidance. And we play the connecting bridge. That's one. Second, there are various countries around the world, such as Ireland, Suriname, Panama, and many others, where the Indian population as a percentage is fairly large. Now, these countries are at different points in their own evolution in the entrepreneurial journey and value chain, but they want to triangulate with their own Indian diaspora, the Indian diaspora in the United States who are in the entrepreneurial realm, and folks in India. And they want to have trilateral dialogues. Indiaspora has convened several of those. Okay. Yeah. The third area is the India stack, the digital public infrastructure that is so widely known and so widely admired around the world. We have developed economies like France and others, which are now taking cues out of the India stack. Yeah. So we serve as a force multiplier. We serve as a catalyst, as a convener, as an amplifier of India's great work in the digital public infrastructure realm. And the last area is in terms of entrepreneurs from companies in India, based in India, who move abroad to get closer to their customers, to gain scale. We help acclimate them with the VC and the venture capital and the entrepreneurial ecosystem in various countries.
All right. Mr. Chaudhry, I want to take that point about AI forward and ask you a broader question before I go to Romal on some specific points. And this is to do with some of the latest technologies that you think are going to drive business transformation in 2024 and beyond.
So first of all, AI/ML is making many jobs a lot easier to do. Take, for example, customer support. When a customer calls for help in certain areas, teams of people need to be trained. They need to go through all that stuff to be able to troubleshoot and answer those questions. AI/ML makes them far more productive. It can make the job a lot easier. In engineering, the code can be written and by AI. It can be checked by AI. QA can be done by AI. So there's benefits in the area. In marketing area, there's so many benefits too. It can actually create your website. It can translate your website into 10 different languages. Now, they're all 95% correct. At this stage, you have to clean them up. But it is helping productivity in many, many areas. And then, since I come from cybersecurity backgrounds, so I'll talk about some of the things that AI can do in this area. So first, the bad side. If you are to hack a company, it takes hackers a good amount of time to figure out how do you get into that company. They need to find either simple users who could be kind of frauded, who could be done social engineering to get their passwords and the like through phishing, or they find applications that are vulnerable. Now you can ask a simple question to ChatGPT. Tell me what's the best way to get into this company. Show me all the firewalls and VPNs that have vulnerabilities in there.
I'm very tempted to interrupt you. Are companies sizing up to this challenge and putting in place safeguards? Would it be called an AI cyber wall?
Yeah, walls are no good in today's world. We tried firewalls. Firewalls haven't done anything good. They used to be good before the internet. But there are many techniques. I'll tell you what needs to be done, what's being done. So AI is making it easier to find attack targets and go after them. But also, when you go after them, it's not that this attack happened in 1 day or 1 minute. They steal your credentials, then they try to get into one system, then they need to get on the network, find the second system, third, and so on and so forth. Now, as they go through, Zscaler technology tracks every step where things are headed. That creates lots and lots of data. And before, it's very hard to figure out what's happening in there's tons and tons of data. Today, using some of the AI/ML technology, we can scan all of that data and figure out which company is in what stage of attack, so we can predict a breach and tell the customer to take proactive actions to block those things. So fighting AI with AI will happen.
That's a very important point, and I don't know how many CEOs, especially in mid-sized company, Romal, would be sizing up to this challenge. I want to turn the focus to something you have just done apart from that survey that you spoke about, and this is a new code that kind of the aim of that is to ensure that software becomes more responsible in terms of carbon emissions. Take us through those details.
Yeah. So, when we look at emissions, it's generally considered everything to do with fossil fuels, automotives, all the usual stuff. But there are enough studies done to say that now that 3% of global emissions are from the ICT industry. 3%. And with Gen AI coming in, we estimate that could go up to as high as 14%. So what we as Deloitte did, and this is an innovation coming out of India, to basically say, can we look at digital assets and say whether, as basic as a website, to say are they energy efficient or inefficient? And what we've realized is pretty much most of them are inefficient. To give you a simple example, if you take some of the top sites and a single user running through all web pages, they don't necessarily run through all web pages, but if, let's assume hypothetically, they run through all web pages in a day, that's equivalent to driving 10 kilometers on petrol, which is significant. And these sites have 30 to 50 million users. So it's really, the second bit is what we've seen, and Mr. Chaudhry probably would know more than me on this one, that in any code that is written, our analysis indicates 60% is really never used. So 40% is what is used. But all of this consumes energy. Third is, as we get more digital, and we talk about inclusion, most websites, pretty much 99%, don't cater to people who are colorblind, which is nearly 5% of the world's population. 20 to 25%, depending on where you are, have astigmatism, which again sort of, they're not able to make out things. So things like this is where we said as Deloitte, can we do something about it? And just a fun fact that, and we have something going in the background, is that we've identified that if it's blue, it consumes more energy than green and red. So to that extent, we've gone to basically identify. And we've also, so one is to identify that, hey, this is something there. Then second is to say, okay, what do you do about it also? We've built compression techniques where you could take a 400 MB video file and make it a 400 KB file, lossless, right? I understand where it's lost, but this is really lossless. And of course, you have to balance customer experience. You can't do everything of this, but at least if we are more sensitive towards it, this would, so we call it as the enterprise conscious code. So building a framework, and we built for Java now. So how to write software in a better and more efficient way, how to have better governance and quality procedures as well, because this is just going to go on, right? And AI feeds of what someone has learned. So if we have been doing something wrong, it will continue to do it wrong. So it's not that it will learn.
So that's a good point. When the crypto boom was happening, a lot of stories used to appear about the power consumption and consequent emissions that was generating. But you've given us a fascinating insight that even normal, innocuous behavior, which includes going to an e-commerce website, leaves a significant carbon footprint. Mr. Chaudhry, I come back to you and ask you the question that India and many people here in separate conversations have spoken about the digital public infrastructure. Right where you are sitting, the Governor of the Reserve Bank of India, Dr. Shaktikanta Das, just a little while ago was talking about the UPI success and related matters. And around us, in fact, viewers, we'll try and get that to you later, is a display of that. We are leaders in that space, but what do we need to do, in your sense, to become leaders in cybersecurity? Because for a lot of our viewers who may not even understand the word, they will definitely connect with a word called Jamtara. I don't know if you are aware of it, but maybe you could, give us a bit of your vision in this regard.
So first of all, it's fascinating to see what India has done with India Stack, the kind of infrastructure changes. It makes us so proud that with Aadhaar and then building UPI on top of that. I used to wonder 10, 15 years ago, whenever I went to India, most places won't take credit cards. Say, will India ever adopt credit card, or will it remain a cash-based economy? Now you go there, it's all electronic, it's all e-pay, it's fascinating. There was a cartoon I was watching somewhere, a beggar had a little QR code, please donate. It's amazing how quickly it is done. And I also think that the programs that our Prime Minister started, opening bank accounts, all this money could be linked directly together. I'm hoping that it has hopefully significantly reduced corruption that used to happen. It must happen. But the cyber part of it. So India is actually picking up on startups pretty rapidly. Okay, now about a third of the startups in the world are happening in India. If you asked this question 5 years ago or 8 years ago, I bet we were barely even 1/10. Right? It's happening fast. They're doing a lot of work in many areas. In cyber, there are a few dozen companies in India actually that are working on it. We actually work with them. We have done 3 acquisitions of cyber startup companies out of India. So the challenge India has is, how do you make these companies big enough? There's one role model India could learn from in this area is Israel.
I was about to say that because, a lot of companies, but please.
Right. Israel, such a small country, and they do it beautifully. In fact, they do in the cyber world more than any other world, and partly because a lot of people come from military in Israel, but also a couple of security companies like Checkpoint Software did very well, and others got inspiration from it. And I think India will do the same thing. What people in Israel have learned to do is, they do development in Israel, but they open the office in the US. They don't even try to build a business in Israel. The population is so small. So the first market for them is the US.
So are you telling these startups to develop in India but build the business overseas?
Yes, but India is also a pretty sizable economy.
Absolutely.
They can do both.
Okay.
But to really get to the world stage, they need to open a sales and marketing office here in the US. And Sanjeev and team are rare to help those people. I think the smarts are there in India, hardworking are there, good technologies are there. If they lack somewhat, it's the deeper understanding of customer requirements in the US and Europe.
Absolutely. And I don't know if my cameraman colleague Mohsin can pan around, but I can tell you there's a board write-up which says startup and innovation, 1 out of 10 global unicorns from India. 15x increase in funding since 2014 and second largest number of unicorns in the world. So if you are a startup founder in this space, mark Mr. Chaudhry's words, because the person sitting next to him can help you build a business overseas. Romal, because Mr. Chaudhry spoke about the economy, I want to, while we wrap this conversation, turn the focus back to the macro picture for India. Over the last 3 days, there's been a lot of praise for India, for DPI, for some of the other innovative work. And like Mr. Chaudhry said, because of the size of the economy, everyone has to sort of take India seriously. You can't be in business and not look at it. What do you think are the key factors that are driving this optimism behind the India story?
Yeah. So I think the first one is, I think if you look at corporate balance sheets, they're much stronger. So I think it's at NPAs are, at an all-time low. So corporate India is doing strong. Second, our domestic consumption itself is also fairly strong. It's not that as dependent on just purely exports. And, I think a lot of economy is to do with optimism, is to do with confidence. So when you're talking to some of the Indian CEOs, right, big conglomerates, they're not talking about we need to grow 30%, 40%. They're saying we need to grow 3x in 5 years or, 2x in 2 years. So it's very significant, right? I mean, the mood is there. Third, from a country perspective as well, I think, the right assets are in place, the DPI, the amount of leakage that used to happen in subsidies, all right, that has dramatically reduced. I was giving the example that FASTag, of course, a simple FASTag today helps save, 17,000 crores of fuel. It's dramatic, right? So it's that significant.
And productivity on top of that.
And productivity.
Does the scale of change surprise you?
It is. It's big, but India is big too.
And who do you give credit for this change? I'm not asking you a political question, but
I think the way government is opening up, driving some of these changes, I think it's a good thing. Government should leave private companies alone. Then things take off. The more bureaucratic regulation they put in place, the more things slow down.
Yeah. And also I think, Siddharth, not necessarily I would say today, but the pivot even for AI, the pivot from moving from software services to start building products, that's a pivot, that's a change in the mindset. And some of the startups obviously are doing that significantly. And, Mr. Chaudhry mentioned that as well. That pivot is also, something that is happening. So that services revenue that I mentioned, we have now overtaken Saudi Arabia's oil exports, right? Which is fairly significant, right? So I think that's the mood.
It's the mindset change. Sanjeev,
I'll add a comment to that. India's mood and how people are thinking about it. When I started Zscaler or Zscaler for India, in 2008 timeframe, I opened the Bangalore office before I opened the office in Silicon Valley, because I wanted to be able to do everything in India. And there was a little bit of a mindset where people will think about, I'm going to work my X hours and go back, go home. I would go and tell these people that, hey, you need to think like a private company. Go the extra mile, take care of it. I used to have struggle in hiring some people. They'll say, this one interview I still recall, this person said, I really want to work for Zscaler, but my dad tells me, no one has heard of Zscaler. If you work for IBM, then you'll get married in a better home. He said, come on. Now the mood has fully changed. When I used to hire people, I used to tell them, you can take this much salary, but we'll give you stock in the company. And they'll say, stock, what is this stock? I don't care about it. Now, everyone knows about stock. Zscaler, we're well known for how many people had done very well in India. About 37% of total Zscaler employees are in India. Okay. The other thing interesting I did was, the main hub used to be Bangalore for every company. It's tough, it's talent war and everything. And I said, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to make Chandigarh the primary hub and see if it works. So today, actually about 50% of our employees are in Chandigarh.
And what about your place of birth, Una?
Una doesn't have any talent. So people who want a job, they can move to Chandigarh or wherever they need to move. But it's true, Chandigarh was a lot lower cost and attrition is very low.
Sorry, tell me one thing, because Narayan Murthy spoke about 70 hours per week. What are the number of hours that you expect people to put in?
So we don't really expect a number of hours. This is what I look for. I want to hire people who are passionate and driven, who enjoy doing what needs to be done. If you got passionate people, it becomes a hobby, they end up delivering results. We try to weed out people up front who really just want a job for the sake of a job. We don't hire them.
But does passion mean being available 24/7?
No, not really. There are times you need to take care of things, and that may be a weekend or evenings, but it can't be everything all the time. I think people need to learn how to adjust their things. Look, I did startup. My wife and I actually did startup together, all 5 of them. It was actually,
Whatever the number of hours that both of you put in?
I don't think I ever counted. Look, it takes a lot of time and effort, but I think I have always tried to integrate my family life and work life. For example, one of the things we did in the evening, every evening after dinner, was with kids, we went for what we call bonding walk. For 35, 40 minutes. Just 3 kids, my wife and I will go for a walk and chat and catch up. Did we do some work on the weekend? Yes, but in the bedroom, in the family room, we got together, kids are playing on learning computers, we are kind of sitting as a family, doing some work and having fun. So I think it's a mindset and balance. You do need to balance. For me, family and health have been number one, always. And job is important, but if the job becomes a hobby, then it's no longer work.
That was one of the most successful global Indians on the work-life balance. But as we wind down this conversation, I'm coming to you on a point that perhaps needs more deliberation, but we'll wrap up on that. For Indian startups to become global, on the lines of what Mr. Chaudhry spoke about, what can you sort of summarize quickly in terms of the 3 most important things that they need to do?
So I think what I'll say is there is one couple of things that I'll say on that. Number one, I think it is very important for Indian startups not only to take advantage of the vast and expanding Indian market, but as Jay pointed out just a couple of minutes ago, to have a global mindset to be able to sell to customers outside India, right? That is one way of scaling that the Indian startups really need to adopt. That is one thing I'll say. The second thing I'll say is start thinking about building connections in other countries and acclimate yourself with the VCs and the entrepreneurial ecosystems. Jay mentioned Israel a short while ago. As it turns out, Israel is one of the countries that in 2017 and 2018, Indiaspora did a trilateral exchange with between India, Israel, and the United States on technology, entrepreneurship, venture capital, and startups. We've done that 4 times in the US, India, and Israel, as a matter of fact. Yeah. So think about your customers and build relationships globally. The last point I'll make is on the India stack, if I can come back to that for 1 second. I think that represents a tremendous opportunity for India as a country, because the platform on which you are building that, India is willing to share. India has shared with several countries. Other countries, as I mentioned before, are showing interest. And unlike some other nations where their assistance results in indebtedness for the receiving country, this is free of cost and is forward-looking. Right? So it's a huge foreign policy and geopolitical opportunity for India as well. I mentioned that only because we are sitting in Davos today. You can't escape geopolitics.
Absolutely. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has made it a point to give DPI to various countries who were once, and many nations are already working on it, and hopefully we'll see many more numbers. I'm going to thank my panel for a discussion where we touched upon several points, and hopefully you will get to learn something from that. I did, and I thank my entire panel for their time with us today. With that, it's a wrap. We'll see you again. Until then, goodbye.